This is Ellen living the life on the tropical island of St. Bart's, and this is Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Dennis, coming to you from the entertainment capital of the world, New York City. And you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is David, coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. If you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers
And Sister.
That's right, Ellen. Welcome, everyone, to episode 471.
Phew.
And today, we have another great guest. What a way to kick off our 10th season of Light Talk. We have been trying to get this guy on our show since season 1, and I guess he was just waiting to see if we were going to last. Well, we're here, Bruce, and welcome Bruce Rodgers from Tribe.
Oh my goodness, what an intro.
Yay!
That means a lot.
What an intro, man.
Thank you.
For our listeners who can't see Bruce, he's looking fabulous. He's got this amazing beard that I am like jonesing for. I'll never be able to get that going on. He's got this two-tone thing happening. It is so classic, man. So, Bruce, it's great to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you. It's been like 10, 15 years. Remember that discussion we had at your studio?
Yeah, man. I remember that. And thank you for having me. It's so cool to see you and Dennis and my longtime friend Ellen. And you know, when I first caught wind of this thing that you guys do, it's through my buddy Eric Siegel, and he sent that to me. And then a couple of weeks later, Dennis contacted to see if I wanted to do it. And the Siegel interview, the podcast, was a little bit intimidating because you guys are so glued together in the mindsets and the intelligence and things like that. I don't know that I could hold a candle to Mr. Eric Siegel, but I will try. It's good to be here.
I think you'll do fine. I'll do fine. So for our listeners who may not know much about our extremely esteemed guest, Bruce, Dennis, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about him?
Well, Bruce Rodgers is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning American set and production designer, known for his innovations in live music production design. His credits are in every form and genre of music. Rodgers has worked with multiple artists across his 35-year career, including, and pay attention closely, Prince, Jay-Z, Dolly Parton, Mary J. Blige, Reba McEntire, Ray Charles, Leonard Cohen, Brian Wilson, Johnny Cash, Sammy Davis Jr., John Denver, Beyonce, Alicia Keys, Rihanna, Shakira, Lady Gaga, The Weeknd, Dave Matthews Band, Evel Knievel, Creed, Romeo Santos, Mark Anthony, Ricky Martin, Lenny Kravitz, Michelle Obama, Garth Brooks, Bjork, Coldplay, Shabuzi, Crispo, Tiesto, Zach Brown, Helen Fisher, Alvin Ailey American Dance Studio, the Boys Choir of Harlem, the New York Philharmonic, the Boston Pops, and I'm going to stop there. It could go on
please.
and on. Along with the design of the last 20, did you hear me? 20 consecutive Super Bowl halftime shows, 2 of which I was pleased to be on the sidelines to watch. Bruce designed this year's Bad Bunny. Rodgers has also done consecutive designs for Chris Stapleton's All-American Road Show, the set design for Bruce Springsteen and the E-Street Band's Land of Hope and Dreams American Tour, his 4th Cirque du Soleil creation titled Blazers. He designed the first ever FIFA World Cup halftime show, the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, the 2024 Democratic National Convention, and the Detroit Lions Thanksgiving halftime show starring Jack White. Bruce is currently designing the 2026 FIFA World Cup halftime show, also the 2026 MLB All-Star Game ceremonies, and if that's not enough, the America 250 4th of July free concert in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Wow. I'm out of breath. I have no more saliva left for this show.
I'm exhausted too.
I'm amazed.
Exhausting.
I mean, you had me at Evel Knievel. Okay.
Wow.
That's all I can say.
Let me tell you, that was a fun summer.
The man who jumps over fountains and canyons.
Yes.
In a rocket.
I had to put Evel in there. The project didn't get made, but the meetings were happened, and I had to throw him into my list because you learn
I love
from
it.
interacting with all kinds of people, and to interact with Bruce Springsteen or maybe an Evel Knievel is two similar things. But yeah, I spent about a summer of meetings with Evel Knievel back in the early 90s to help him design some ideas for a museum. And they were always morning meetings, and he was just fabulous. And I don't know, I feel like I learned a lot from him in just those short meetings. And all the as a little kid, I had the Evel Knievel toys, and he told me about how the toy business worked out for him. And just a regular guy. I think in my business, most of the people that I work with, Chris Stapleton's a great example, Dierks Bentley, Evel Knievel, they're cool people, and they're regular folks. And sometimes the regular folks thing transcends into a superstar status that kind of separates them from the rest of us. But I've been lucky not to have that happen. Anyway, it's good to be here with you guys.
Everybody's going to want to know about those 20 halftime shows. But before we get into that, I have to ask a question.
Please
and
do.
that's about your Broadway work.
Oh, gosh.
Our Crack a Light Talk research team told me that you did a Broadway musical with Melissa Etheridge called My Window back in September of 2023 at the Circle in the Square. Yet, it wasn't in your bio, and it's a little known fact. Can you tell us a little about that for our theater folks?
I feel terrible that is not in my bio. It was actually a great experience, the only Broadway experience that I have. And Melissa called, and she probably could have picked anybody to help her on the gig, but she wanted someone from the rock and roll world, and that's me. And of course, I jumped at it. The director's an old friend of mine, Amy Tinkham, and then Abby Rosen Holmes was on board to light the thing. And the amazing Olivia Sebeski was doing content, and the budgets were tight. When we went into that theater, it was empty, and I was inspired by the emptiness, and so we basically took that was the set design, was the empty theater, but we painted the black background in sort of that projection-friendly black paint that has the silver stuff put in it. And so that I could contribute most of my budget over to Olivia's side and help her to do more and more beautiful projections like she did. But yeah, I got to add that back into my bio. Melissa is an incredible performer and is incredible 5 feet away from everybody. And to be there with her while she's telling her stories for those few months was really pretty inspiring, and I'm happy that she was able to be doing that in the big city.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to see the show, but a close friend of mine saw the show, and he said, "Dennis, you got to go and see this show. It's absolutely beautiful and emotionally gut-kicking, and I'm sorry I missed it. It sounds like it was a good experience for all involved."
Yeah, it was incredible. And I said this earlier, that being on Broadway for the first time in my life and having a simple solution like that in the midst, in the neighborhood of the designers that I love so much that work there on Broadway, they're probably the biggest thinkers in the world, to be able to come up with the intricate designs that take place in these very small theaters. And it wasn't lost on me that I was hanging around a pretty incredible neighborhood there. So happy that, and I will put that back in the bio, I think. I don't know why it's not there.
You know, while it's not a Broadway production, you do mention another theatrical experience that I loved, De La Guarda. Tell us about that. I think people flew, they got wet, It moved to Vegas. It was in a lot of places. What was that going on there?
Well, that was the group out of South America, the Fuerza Bruta, and we met on a project that I did for Vogue magazine, and I think MTV produced that piece. But we were able to go there, see their show, and then work with their creative team to somehow come and do part of their performance on this Vogue fashion show that we were doing. So not my design, De La Guarda, but there you go. That is an example of what happens in my line of work. Is often you get a chance to collaborate with other great artists and creators, and that's a good example of that.
So what got you into this business in the first place?
That's a good question. Well, I grew up in Odessa, Texas. I think some people might not know where Odessa is, but this is a place that was written about years ago on the book Friday Night Lights. And recently there's a series out called Landman, Billy Bob Thornton stars in, that takes place in Odessa.
Great series.
Yeah, great series.
Great series.
Yeah, love Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah, Billy Bob's amazing. The story's amazing. The writer, producer, Taylor Sheridan is amazing. And I say that, but in the first season last year or two ago, my kids, I have 3 amazing kids and beautiful wife, they started watching this series called Landman, and I'd not heard about it. And I got home and they wanted me to watch it, and they said, we're learning more about you than we ever knew. And I said, oh my God. I tried to watch Landman,
Dad.
and I couldn't watch it. It was just too much. It was too close to home. It was things that I had forgotten that were coming back into memory, and finally I kind of got the gumption together to watch that and embrace some of my past. But basically, to answer your question, raised in Odessa, Texas. My father was a truck driver, and my mother was a homeowner, and did all kinds of interesting creative jobs around town. And we were raised to do, anything that we really wanted. Not a lot of money in the household, but a lot of love and a lot of support. And you can do anything. You just dream big, all that kind of stuff. And so, and I had some cousins that lived out in California. So I just knew in my head that this remote place called Hollywood might be achievable. I had an issue when I was a little kid where I had a pretty good fear of the dark, and I could not figure out a way to go to sleep, just a little kid. And so my folks would let me stay up late and watch the late movies. Remember back then there was only 3 channels, but at the end of the evening you might have 2 movies lined up, one after the other. And there was always that break in between the 2 movies where they presented little 15-minute behind the scenes. And the one I particularly remember is the Planet of the Apes and all the makeup and everything that they did. And I glued myself to that at 11 o'clock at night, and age 6, and thought, well, wow, that's incredible. My cousins live out there, cousin Billy and Nancy. And I just thought, I bet I could do that. I bet I could go there. So for the rest of my life growing up, just absorbed as many films and everything I could do as possible. And finally I started, I got into high school, started taking drafting classes. Things got twisted, and I thought maybe I would be an architect. And then I met a local architect. He let me come to work with him. So I would, in high school, I was drafting for basically a residential architect in Odessa, Texas. Went to Texas Tech, a couple hours away, and studied architecture, and eventually architecture and theater set design. When I decided to go into theater set design, it was about 3 weeks into the semester, and I was in my junior year, I believe, in architecture, and I went the next morning. I saw that they were working late, and I went the next morning and knocked on the doors. Dr. Forrest Newland is his name, and he.
Oh, I know Forrest.
Yeah.
I know Forrest. Yeah, from SMU when I was a student.
Oh
there.
my gosh, goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
He
you
was
remember?
my teacher for 1 year.
Yeah, you remember Doc? And he.
Oh, of course.
And I showed him my drawings, and I could draft and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, let's take some classes. I'll get you in the set design program starting tomorrow." And I ended up helping him teach the other students how to draw, and it became kind of this really great way, just a more focused way forward for me. And hanging out with all the folks there just became a life that I really, really wanted. So finished school, went with Doc to Wichita, Kansas for the music program, and serving as his like assistant technical director for a summer to make a little bit of money before I moved to Los Angeles. And while there, that particular music festival, theater festival, they had brought in several lighting and set designers from Broadway. And they said, "Where are you going to go after this?" And so I'm headed to LA, and they gave me a phone number to call. So I called this guy. His name was Jeremy Railton, and I said, "I'm going to be there in 1st of September." And they had already called him and said, "You got to hire this guy." So I got lucky and went in and got to California and went to meet Jeremy. And I literally had a brown paper bag of my drawings and sketches and stuff. I literally poured them on his desk, and he was like, if anybody knows or knew Jeremy, rest in peace, Jeremy. Yep. He that was his thing. He said, "I totally understand not being organized, but I also understand I'm looking at some drawings and sketches and things that I know you know what we're going to try to do." And he hired me on the spot. That lasted 10 years. But after the first year of working with Jeremy, I knew that I wanted to do, I wanted more. And so I made a proposal to him that we make a partnership instead of being his assistant, and that we would create some sort of like an architecture firm for set design. And we did that. And over the course of 10 years, I think by the 10-year plan, we had about 50 designers working for us. And we were doing museums and ceremonies and lots of television, lots of music tours, things like that. And what I loved about Jeremy is that he didn't have just one focus. If the phone rang and it was a guy from Toyota who wanted to do a car show, we would take that job. And it just became that. And that's sort of the way I've run my business since then. That's why I've got such a kind of a resume that is in almost every part of the planet. And I still love doing that. I still have friends from the early days. I just had dinner with Jerry Harris from PRG the other night, and we were remembering some of my early shows. So that's, long story short with that, is that one of the projects at the end of that 10-year relationship was the Atlanta Olympic Pavilion there at Centennial Park, and that was my baby. And I was there in Atlanta for the whole month, and I was there that night when unfortunately when the bomb blew up. It was right at the corner of our front of house tower. I don't know if you remember any of that. And for the first night in about 10 nights, I was not in that front of house tower. I was in the pavilion. And but I did see the explosion, and I did see where it came from, and I thought that a lot of my friends might have gotten hurt, and ran over there, and they had been evacuated on time, thank God. by Richard Jewell, who was the security guard that they kind of, blamed without proof. And then that helped he was ill after that for years and years, and he passed away. But it was a pretty traumatic evening, and I used that to kind of look deeper at myself and think, okay, maybe it's time to do something a little similar but different. And so I resigned from the company when I got home from the Olympics, and then spent about 3 months traveling through the Northwest with Shelley, who was not yet my fiance, but close, and decided when we got back that I would start a company called Tribe Inc. And that's what we did in 1997.
And where does the name come from? Where does Tribe come from?
Well, me and my friends who are in this same business, and we really, and focusing on concerts, for example, used to like to try to think very, very deeply on what it is that what's a concert for? What is church for? What is any kind of gathering where you and the person sitting next to you are not really acquainted? You're experiencing something at the same time. You leave that something, let's say it's a concert, at the same time, but you might remember that concert, you might remember that congregation of people for the rest of your life. And for that moment, you were a tribe, maybe Bruce Springsteen's tribe or Chris Stapleton's tribe. And so we used to think about that a lot and talk about that a lot and what that meant. And so that just became the natural reason for the name. And my buddy Anton Goss, who was my assistant at one point, is my best man, is quite a great production designer now on his own.
I know Anton. He's wonderful.
Yeah, he's wonderful. And he drew the logo, our company logo. And what the company logo is, it's almost like a circle that's been opened up, and there's an entity in the middle of the circle, but the opening is quite sharp and quite razor pointed. And so that's under the theory or the thinking that we had that when you go to enter any group, you have to be very, very careful that it's a dangerous, sharp entryway that you have to be very careful with, not only when you're going into it, but when you're leaving. And that's the way we felt that our businesses should be run and our relationships with other people should be, is that you always want to be really careful going into the relationship and leaving the relationship. And so that's, in a way, that's the logo, and that's the reason why we call our company Tribe.
So Tribe, over how many years? Three decades? 2 decades? What is it?
Well, 97.
2 decades?
Yeah, I think it's...
yeah, okay. You're going on 3.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
I mean, you have done everything from huge rock concerts, right, to big theatrical exhibitions, to the Super Bowl for 20 years, and presenting work. You've created work on the largest stage in the world. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people see this show. I'm talking about the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yeah.
You know, it's what was it, 12 minutes? I keep forgetting how long the show is.
Yeah.
Because it just depends on, the show. But a show that's live and extremely extravagant technically.
Yeah.
I mean, with different types of technical challenges every year.
Absolutely.
We could talk about Bad Bunny, and that technical challenge is amazing. And I'm sure I was thinking about you, Bruce. I was thinking, okay, how's Bruce going to handle this? This is going to be interesting. And as soon as I saw those bushes, those cameras from off stage, I was like saying, this is awesome. This is awesome. But anyway, getting back to the point. And then you have things from from concert presentations, very maybe somewhat conventional, like the Bruce Springsteen halftime show, or even the Who halftime show, which was to me a master of design, which I would like to talk to you about a little
David,
bit.
thank you.
And you're shaking your head.
Yeah, the Who.
For our listeners.
The Who was one of my favorites too.
The first time I met you, you had just done that show. And you told me a lot of great stories about that show that I have actually repeated to people because it's so amazing the way you told that story. And I've told that story and I said, I am not doing justice to this story because the way Bruce says the story. So I don't know if you'd want to talk a little bit about that. But the point being is that every single production you have designed for that has been so different and has presented so many absolutely insane technical challenges that you have solved. Does any particular production or any show really stand out for you?
Wow. Well,
or group of shows?
Yeah. I mean, of the 20, it's really hard for me to even say that. But of the 20, and Ellen's here, she's been along the ride for all 20 of these because she's one of the first of a handful of people that I speak to on show day and in the weeks after. And so it's become, Ellen and I, it's become a tradition to hear her supportive voice and to hear her reaction to these shows too. So it's really cool to have you here too, Ellen. But let me try to answer your question.
Thanks, Bruce.
You're welcome. My first one was Prince. And
right.
And I'll be honest with you, coming from Odessa, Texas, and Friday Night Lights and football and growing up in high school football and the football culture in Texas, when I got to Los Angeles, the NFL and any idea of a Super Bowl kind of wasn't in me. I knew the great Mark Fishers and the Roy Bennett's and the Willie Williamses and these guys that were taking part in these halftime shows. And of course they were buddies and I have all kinds of support for those guys. And I loved their designs, but I never thought, hey, I'm going to be Super Bowl guy once or maybe twice or even 20. Oh my God. So what I did do was I focused on my other stuff, my music, my concert tours, and trying to always do a great job and working with people like Eric Siegel at Channel One and trying to really getting into, some important things that meant things to me. And so I got a call from, who was it? I think it was Don Mischer, or he had someone call me. And Don had done several halftime shows and then he fell out of that and then he came back and Prince was sort of his return. And when he returned, he brought along Ricky Kirshner and Glenn Weiss to co-produce for him. And Don didn't go anywhere in those days without Bobby Dickinson. And he asked Bobby Dickinson, or I guess they had the issue with Janet Jackson, and then the following after that was Rolling Stones, and after Janet was Paul McCartney, and then after Paul McCartney was the Rolling Stones. And Roy Bennett had designed Paul McCartney, and Mark Fisher had designed the Rolling Stones. And for whatever reason, when Don and Ricky and Glenn came in, they wanted a little bit more control. So they wanted a designer that could bid things out and do sketches beforehand and all that sort of production designer stuff. And I was pretty good at that. And so I got a call and they said, can you be in New York? And I flew to New York and I met with the three of those guys. And I'd never met Don Mischer. I'd heard of him growing up in the business. And, the great Don Mischer, he was, I'm going to say 7 feet tall, but he was probably 6'6", giant Texan. I was a Texan too. So I was like, okay, I'm going to meet this Texan. I'm going to see this. And, and so we hit it off and they gave me the job and seems like it was in March, and we were about to design for the next end of January game. And because I'd been studying what Mark and Roy and all those guys had been doing, and started really to dive in and see how they were designing and what were they building and stuff, I started thinking about, what have I learned about working with artists like Prince? And that is that, and I think this might answer your question about why does each of my 20 shows feel fresh and different? It's because the rule of thumb to success in designing for music or musicians is you have to lock on to their look and their feel and what the music is saying. Every music artist is different than the next, and different enough to where you can really identify what it is that they're personally trying to say. So that there goes the answer. With Prince, and then I want to go to a couple other shows that I'm proud of in that run. With Prince, what I loved about him is that he was, 5'4", 5'5" tall. And with a guitar, he came across as someone like a giant. And he had so much confidence, and that I thought, let's do a design that has no design. Let's do nothing. Well, let's use his logo, because he's all about the logo too. But no other vertical scenery, so that we could have him in the middle of the stadium, surrounded by mankind. It's almost him versus the world, like a gladiator. And we moved the set to the middle of the field. And we talked to Don about it, because Don was not only the executive producer, he was the director. And he shot it as if it was a 360 show. The gag where we had that silk blow up from the fans to get that silhouette, that was out of a conversation that we were talking about. We need something special, a moment. And they were remembering, Bobby and Don did the Atlanta opening ceremonies, where they built a cylinder, basically a wall, about a 60-foot diameter wall of silk, and all the athletes or the dancers were inside, and they cast shadows of all those athletes doing the discus and things like that. And they were like, how can we do a trick like that? And I said, well, we can find a place in the logo set design to have the silk blow up. And then Bobby said, Bobby always had the answer of the exact kind of light he would do. And so we did a sketch, and Prince approved it. The long story short on Prince, which I'm very proud of, that was my first one, is that we woke up and the rain would not stop. It was raining in Miami. It did not stop from the moment I opened my hotel window till I got home that night. And I know Prince probably opened his hotel window too. It's probably a nicer hotel than I was in. And I'm sure he said the same thing, but my sense was that there was nothing that was going to keep him from performing. And so let's cut to the beginning, where we're installing the set. The stage was about a 20-cart stage for Prince. And each cart, rule of thumb, is pushed on by about 10 people. And we're running power, and the lighting guys are plugging in power and data, and it's chaos. It's like Saving Private Ryan. And people are going, and I'm in the truck, and I'm behind Don Mischer, the great Don Mischer, sitting in my place. 2 seats to my right is Bobby Dickinson. To my left is Ricky and Glenn. And it's mayhem, because we can hear all the communications from the guys out on the field, where the rain is just dousing down, and they're trying to put the set piece together in the 7.5, 8 minutes. And we hear through the sound system that all the spotlights that we had out on the field, because the only scenery were these gigantic spotlights, and we couldn't get power to them. The power wouldn't.
Oh, Jesus.
And so I'm hearing the great Bobby Dickinson over here to my right, And he said, all right, lighting crew, everybody listen to me. We're going to go to a plan B. We're not going to have all 7 of my spots. We're only going to have 2. So number 1, can you hear me? Yes. Number 2, can you hear me? Yes. Or number 1, you got Prince straight, he's directing, and it was almost just about to be a 2 spotlight show for a second. Then we get interrupted. Hey, we got 3 spots back. No. So Bobby's like, we're going to go to plan C. And so Bobby was calling these shots. And I'm just sitting there going, I'm sitting here with the greatest, the guys that kind of wrote the book on live television production. And Don is talking to audio, and he's talking to his assistant director and all that. And then he said to the stage manager, who was right there under the stage with Prince, that let me talk to Prince. And so they put him on their walkie-talkie, and I heard Prince's voice saying, yeah, Don, what you doing? And Don goes, trying to be funny, he said, Prince, I don't know if you know this, but it's raining. And Prince said, oh, can you make it rain more? Let's do this.
Love it.
And a minute later, well, one other story was that one of the power cables that was supposed to light some of the ground spots, these things were called Falcons from Germany, I think, that Bobby had flown in, had gotten severed or rolled over and cut off the plug or whatever. And I think his name is Tony Ward, and he's still with us over at PRG. I believe he took a knife out and he splayed the end of it, and he plugged it in, and the Falcon worked. So that is a legendary move by our friend Tony Ward.
That's legendary. Yeah.
Anyway, that was my first one, and it taught me so much in terms of trusting a larger group to pull things off. I was there to witness my legendary friends and how they reacted. It created something in me that I really wanted to be in that kind of space again, and that the adrenaline was pretty addictive, and a lot of people counting on you. And I don't know, it's a team sport, right? You need the entire team to pull off lots of shows that we all do, but specifically this one. So, yeah, I think if you look at the way each of the other 19 artists came about, and how they were, I don't know, picked to be in the show. And I can tell you that the next year after Prince, we had Tom Petty, and he was in Arizona, and it was such a Tom Petty performance, that just chill and great. And the next morning, what I'm told is that Bruce Springsteen called up Roger Goodell at the NFL and said, okay, I'll do it. They had been asking Bruce for years to do the Super Bowl halftime show, but only after Petty did it did he see himself there. And so that the following year, it was Bruce Springsteen. And all the years kind of tumble into the next, and kind of work with each other.
You talk about the adrenaline rush, and I remember when you and I met initially, and you were telling me these stories, and you told me a story about The Who, and the rush of adrenaline that was going through your body and everyone else on the team, knowing that this is live,
right?
This is complex, this is not easy, it's got to be choreographed. And I believe you told me that for The Who, because the set was basically a circular set and it was pie-shaped pieces, that you really never got a chance to really rehearse it completely because of the rain or something was going on. And the first night, basically where it all came together, was show night.
Right.
And, the run on that type of it's different if you're doing a show, like a regional theater show. And of course there are going to be mistakes, on opening night. Like, that just happens. And I'm sure there were mistakes on all these. But if one of those wedges was not connected, it would really have been a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone would have known.
Right.
And and I just, it's something that's beyond my capabilities. I could never work under that type of pressure. I mean, even the pressure I do just doing operas is crazy for me. But to do what you do it takes a special person, an artist, and also an incredible thinker to be able to solve these problems. Like with Bobby, we had Bobby on the show like 2 months ago. And, you're right. He's like the best when it comes to that. But so are you,
Well,
So I don't know how people like that are bred. Are the Texans? I mean, what's the deal?
yeah,
there?
what is it? What is it? No, I learned so much from Bobby through other, not only Super Bowl, but some other projects we did together. And I just think once you are able to do something huge, you have to really take one step back and realize you're in a group of about 1,000 people, and everybody glued together is a very powerful system, and that's addictive too. There's the adrenaline. There's this team effort thing. It's just not one person. But what I am good at, and I learned this as a young kid, is that I really do appreciate builders and engineers and thinkers, and I don't think I could have survived this many Super Bowls if it was a me kind of world. I think that I fell in love with the way that our staging supervisors, the great Cap Spence and Doug Cook and those guys and Tony Hauser's, are able to work with crews to make things move, and a lot of this I learned from for at least 10 years of touring shows that I helped design, where every road show that lands in a city tomorrow morning is met with the local crew to help build that design over the course of 6 or 7 hours. So in a way, that's similar to what we do in 8 minutes. So I don't know. There are so many amazing live show production teams out there. The Grammys that do turnarounds that would blow your mind. The Tony Awards, where the crews are just so precision and smart and all that kind of stuff. And I always thought, well, I'm part of a crew like that too. It's the Super Bowl, but it's cosmically an entire family like all of us on this call. It's why we do it. We are all in show business because of the satisfaction that we get from helping others or entertaining others or solving problems no one else can solve. It's just a thing we all get into. The Who, you mentioned The Who. The Who was based on the Royal Air Force logo that The Who has always had in their artwork. And I was like, well, what if we build that shield? It's almost like a shield. And what if I make it in lines of my strips? My strips back in the day were those 5-foot long strips of LED. And I think we required 3,500 of them, and there were 4,500 in the planet. We had to fly some in from.
Oh my God!
Anyway, and connecting that many, we found out there wasn't really the technology to connect that many. So our guys, our video guys that I call the ninjas, and I think back in those days, now that most of them work for Fuse, but back in the old days maybe VER, and they helped figure out ways to connect all those pixels. But over the course of 13 days and about 18 rehearsals, you remember correctly, it did not work. It wouldn't. The way it would spark to life is it would start at 6 o'clock, and it would go all the way around the clock dial and come back to 6 o'clock, and it would be on and ready to go. And that never happened in the 20 rehearsals that we had. So I'm like praying. So there we are with The Who and all the pixels that we were trying to wrangle. And underneath the stage was sort of a rat run, I call it. It's about a 4-foot circular path all the way around the high part of the bowl. And there was some 390 connections between lighting and effects and and video. And the stagehands had to create this ballet to be sure that that's my connection, that's my connection. And they just became better at it and better at it. And it comes to the 2 nights before the halftime, before the Super Bowl. And not only did it not come to life during that rehearsal, but it took like 9-10 minutes. And I just remember Ricky Kirshner calling us all in a meeting, all our staging guys and myself, and he said, "Look, I'm gonna go around this room, and I want you to tell me how long it's gonna take to load this thing in, so that we know it works. And I'll go to the NFL and ask for more time if I have to." And he goes to me first. "Bruce, how long is it going to take?" And I said, 8 minutes. And the last time we did it was 13 minutes. He goes, "Of course you're going to say 8 minutes." And he went to the next guy, and these are hardened stagehands, union guys, right? And they went to the first guy, and he said 8 minutes. And all across the table, 8 minutes, 8 minutes. And it just made me feel so good, to think these are my guys. And it worked on Super Bowl Sunday. It was going around the dial, it paused for a second at 12 o'clock. And then I was like, oh no. And it started to retreat because you see all the pixels lining up. And then it went all the way around, full circle, and it was on and ready. And by this show, it was, I believe, Hamish Hamilton's first Super Bowl halftime and Al Gurdon's first Super Bowl halftime. So it ended up being, for me, I thought it was a pretty special show. I thought the content that was created by a guy named Lee Lodge and a group out of New York, I just thought it was very modern Who. And I'm pretty proud of that one.
Can you talk just a minute about Bad Bunny, where it was a daytime show, and that,
Right.
and I felt that production design was absolutely brilliant, because no one knew what was, this is super top secret. I know Dennis could even tell us about it because he was, working on the show. And when we saw it at a big Super Bowl party that Lori and I went to, and everybody was blown away by that design and that performance. That must have been a challenge to you as well.
To answer that question, I think I want to be really, really clear and honest about it, is that over the course of these Super Bowls, I was already handling Bruce Springsteen's tours when he decided to do Super Bowls. So I already had a relationship. Prince and I designed the Prince halftime show. But when you get, now if you fast forward to now and you fast forward to, say, the Madonna halftime show, that suddenly, and I just finished working on a tour with her. So I was doing these cross projects together, but I worked very closely with Jamie King, who was Madonna's creative director and has been forever. And so designing with them was interesting. But then we get to a class of artists that have their set designers built in. Their creative people are also production designers and all that kind of thing. So I start, and Rihanna is a great example, but Bad Bunny is a greater example, that he was sort of he comes from the world that he has something to say. Everything that you see in the Bad Bunny performance came out of his heart. And he then would hire people that he trusts to describe that to me. And they all know that I'm the guy that I don't know what they perceive me as, but I'm the guy that's going to help them get it, make it, build it so that it can get on and get off in the right amount of time. And so I'm very proud of what we were able to do to help Bad Bunny, but clearly this Bad Bunny is a mind that is so tied in to his home and his family and what his music can do to change the world, and he's that kind of a cool dude. And so it really was, that process really was a combining of efforts. He had a creative director named Harriet Cutterford, and she brought in Yellow Studios, Julio Jimenez, who does the Grammys and all that kind of, and they would begin to develop these drawings, and then we'd have to have our meetings to for me to explain why we couldn't have 77 carts in the show. We wanted to try to do it with about 25. So the first drawing I saw, the whole football field was covered in sugarcane. And so it took a little bit for me to divide up the sugarcane and show them just by an illustration or on CAD that it would require 150 carts, and then to give them case studies of here's the last 10 shows, and here's the amount of carts that we had, and here's the amount of tunnels that we had with each halftime show, and let's pick one that's closest to you. How about if we pick Coldplay? So Coldplay was the show that we did 10 years ago, 10 years prior, the 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl. This one for Bad Bunny was the 60th. And so we used that example of Coldplay having 39 carts. And it's all math. You're figuring the average length of a cart is 24 feet long by 8 feet wide. It's probably pushed in by 10, let's say 12 people each. And we know from documentation that it took 8 minutes to get Coldplay on and 6 minutes to get them off. Same tunnel size, everything. So I could use that as an example to our friends that were helping Benito or Bad Bunny. And it was really hard for BIT to get them to think that I was being truthful, or was I trying to trick them into making something smaller. But it finally came down that we really needed a design by Thanksgiving for Bad Bunny to get built. And we're still in the first week of December, battling it out of we want this scale. And admittedly, I would whittle down and say, can we push a little bit closer to the 20-yard line? Or can we do this? And they just, it was hard for them to say no. And then I had this concept, Ellen knows about this, I had this concept that, because I love, there's a guy named Michael Curry did all the puppets for Lion King, and he's done several cool things for us in Halftime Show. I started thinking, what would Michael Curry do here? And I said, what about the idea of grass people? And they were like, grass people? And I was like, yeah, we could make costume. It just makes you laugh when you say that. When I say it makes, and
So an LSD trip you had 30 years ago.
Yeah, it came back. That trip came all the way back. And they were like, one of the managers said to me, I know you're passionate about this idea, Bruce, but there's no strand of any DNA fiber from inside of me or inside all my ancestors that would ever approve a grass person costume in a Bad Bunny show. So it got to December 4th, and we're staring at a field plan that had 77 carts. And I had secretly had a company make a mock-up of the grass costumes so that I could feel better about it, and I said, I presented that, the photos and a little movie of a person walking in a grass outfit. And I said, this is the only way you're going to be able to get the scale that you want and me deliver a show that's 25 carts, because we were asked to do a show that's no greater than 25 carts. So they decided to go for it. And once they decided to go for it, it became a thing where we're going for it. And we built 400 and the truth is, I own the idea, but I'm no costumer. And we have an amazing costumer, Monique Peters. And so she was our next step, and called her up, and I said, are you ready for a challenge? She goes, I'm always ready for a challenge. And I sent her a sketch, I said, we need, at the time I thought we needed like 700. And she goes, I'm ready. And it meant flying airplanes to China and picking up grasses and, making sure that the grasses that made up the costumes were also being used on the grasses that were all built around each of the carts. I don't know. I'm pretty proud of that solution. I wouldn't call it anything more than just a seasoned problem solver who saw a little idea and actually, I know they're happy about the idea now, that they weren't earlier, but now they are. So
It became a big thing. I mean, it was a huge thing. Like, how did they do this? And this is how they did it. And everybody loved it. Whether you're a theater person or just a football fan or whatever, everybody loved it. So, congratulations.
Thank you. I think his goal was a non-political love story, basically. I'm going to tell the world a love story and using my music and my dance and the look and feel of where I come from. And the humanity of it. And when you look at the grass people, it's that's the humanity of it.
Nature, love, everything. Everything.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and a real wedding and a real, everything was real. It was real.
Yeah, his ideas are so brilliant kid, man. Yeah.
Bruce, I'd like to ask about another show and something you had said. I mean, you've gotten a lot of accolades over the years. As we said, you had 2 Emmy wins for halftime shows, one for the Rihanna show and one for the Super Bowl 56 with Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and the rappers. But you also had 2 other nominees for the Lady Gaga halftime show and The Who that you talked about. Yet, my friend Ellen had done an interview with you last year in which you said the Super Bowl 59 halftime show was a spiritual quest for me more than any other halftime show design I've ever been a part of. 59 was the one in New Orleans with Kendrick Lamar. And there was no Emmy nomination or anything, but that seemed to be one of the most important shows for you emotionally, perhaps. What did you mean by that?
Wow, that's a great question.
Well, Ellen asked it first.
No, of course, Ellen asks the great question all the time. Well, sometimes when we get into these design processes and you're working with an artist in an artist camp that is in your same wavelength, it becomes a beautiful thing. Sometimes it's harder to get on the same wavelength, and sometimes it becomes harder to just try to process design, and things are taken personal and all that kind of stuff. Almost where the Bad Bunny experience could have gone easily because we were under so much pressure and behind schedule and things like that. But I think for Kendrick, the design team and Kendrick's way of storytelling was, Mike Carson and Dave Free and the lead creators for him were just interactive and friendly and appreciated what we brought to the table. It was also a kind of a design that we figured out ways to take over the whole field by spreading out the set pieces and connecting them with these RF controlled light sticks to create the game board. Also, the other thing that I think might have triggered my spiritual comment was the performance, the dance. Kendrick grew up in Compton with Dr. Dre and that whole group. And the kid comes from the streets, and he's come out of that like a phoenix. And every sound that comes out of his mouth is a storytelling opportunity to help people be better. Anyway, it kind of connected with me last year more than a lot of them have, I guess. In a way, there's a piece of all 20 of my shows that I could sit down and look and think about and think how fortunate I am and isolate what the message was from each of those 20 artists, Gaga included.
I love the fact that you just noted how fortunate you are. What you personally have gotten out of these is really something special. Just listening to you talk about them, it's fabulous.
Thank you.
Bruce, I think you should write a book. I'm serious.
Yes.
I'm totally serious.
I'll buy it.
I'm totally serious.
I'll buy it.
I mean, come on, man.
I think it would. I think it would be fun to somehow. Here we come up on 21. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do the show. I don't know who the artist is. We always find out in September, I think. June, July, August, September. Sometimes in August. But this next one's going to be very tough because we've got to Bad Bunny raised this bar so high that the audience is expecting more. And the audience has changed too. The audience is very sophisticated, even the young people. And I knew after Kendrick that you could go online or go on Instagram and you can just track what people are saying and what they took away from that halftime. And it's social media allows kids and people to compare notes and to tell each other what they learned or what he was saying to them and that sort of thing. And that just really, I'd never seen anything like it until Kendrick. And then I waited to see if we would have the same thing on Bad Bunny, and you absolutely do. And people uncover and they discover everything that we are trying to do. So it's nice to be appreciated by people out there in the world that I'll probably never get to meet. But I don't know. I'm thinking right now just of a photograph of the whole crew. And everybody across the board that of every walk of life that are on our team, and there's some oddballs too. There's some very interesting and crazy people on our team, but and then there are the introverted, technical guys that are just so perfectly, lined up and everything that you need the technical side to be. I don't know. I wish there was a story. I wish there was a book that could highlight all the amazing people that are on the halftime team.
In 20 years, there's been many amazing people, many amazing directors, many collaborators, and one production designer who's been the conduit for a lot of things that the world has been touched by. And you should be very proud of that. And I agree with David. That needs to be in your book.
Oh, thank you, Dennis. That means a lot. Appreciate that.
I can't wait to see what you do going back to SoFi next year.
Woo-wee. That's
Yeah.
It's quite a stadium. I was there for NBC Sports when you did the Dr. Dre show.
Oh my gosh.
And won the deserved Emmy for that.
Well, I tell you, what you might remember is that, yes, a daytime show, similar time frame as Coldplay and Super Bowl 50. And we thought, okay, it would help the look of the set if the sun was going down, if we kind of just, but it turns out the first and second quarter of the game historically was the fastest first half of any. So if you watch that on YouTube or something, you'll see that the show starts and it still feels a little bright. By the time we get to the end of the 13-minute show, the sun is starting to douse a little bit, and it kind of had a nice little arc there. And which other one were you at, Dennis?
I was with NBC Sports for Minneapolis, for SoFi, and most recently at Levi.
All right.
I usually do all of their studios in the stadium.
Oh, great. Oh, great. So you've been there.
That was brutal with all the snow, and it was like minus 20 outside.
I couldn't believe how we live in Connecticut here, and it gets cold here sometimes. But man, in Minneapolis, it was so cold you felt like your ears are going to break off like potato chips.
I would like to bring up something that your friend Eric Siegel, and since you started the show mentioning him, back in February in episode 464, put a baby on that pigeon. Eric talked about one of his favorite projects. And I told him, I said, Bruce is going to be on the show. Is there any sort of anecdote you'd like to share? And I'm going to read to you what Eric shared with me about that particular show that he was so pleased with.
Okay.
Years ago, we did a set for an ABC News Nightline series that had a ridiculously low budget. No budget, basically. No fabrication in a shop was possible. Bruce's idea was to build our set out of cheaply available construction scaffolding parts and platforms. He augmented that with see-through printed pieces that he bungee corded to the scaffolding. We won an Emmy for that event. Bruce proves that creativity can thrive even without a big budget.
Oh, that's sweet.
Kudos to you, Bruce.
Thank you, Dennis. Good old Eric. That means a lot. Yeah, that was amazing. I cut my teeth on a lot of news channel things. And that's how I met Eric Siegel. If I still have a minute, I want to say that the first time I think I met Eric Siegel was during the LA riots. It had already sparked a couple of days prior. I get a phone call from a guy with a New York accent. Hello, I'm Eric Siegel. We're going to set up a remote think tank, like a discussion in the high school at basically the Flashpoint there in downtown LA, and get Arsenio Hall and a couple others to come and have a set design that was basically bleachers. So it's just filled with high school kids that Eric, he was directing it, would get Arsenio to have a discussion about the riots and how come it was going on and that sort of thing. So I remember that I was busy on another project in Hollywood, but I said, yeah, we'll do it. And I sent Shelley, who I would eventually marry, and her brother. I sent them down to the flashpoint of the riots. And these are two kids from Ohio and driving a little Toyota, and they safely made it there. And then that's when we made friends with Eric Siegel and did lots of cool things with him, including Channel One and other projects like that.
Sometimes it's the smaller projects that mean the most.
Absolutely. It really is. I mean, if there's anybody out there that's going to be listening to this that's considering getting into the business of production design, set design, lighting design, that you think you're going to do it because you want to be artistic, that you want, because it's an exciting profession, I think what you're going to take away is it's all that, but the other thing it's a connection with people that you don't quite understand right now, that you're going to really love about your profession, and everything that you do that we do is meant to uplift and teach and support folks that watch our shows. So I hope that I've been able to do that myself.
Yeah. Well, you're a real theater person, obviously. That's what it's all about. It's all about collaboration and company and caring and humanity and creation and the power of synergy. And boy.
Yeah, it's really interesting too. Like, you come from Texas and Jeremy Railton came from, I don't know, Zimbabwe. And, people, you bring like these really interesting sensibilities to what's really the glitz and glamour of the industry. And I think that really helped shape your brilliance and the way you look at things.
Thank you, Ellen. I agree. And I learned so much from Jeremy. And and everybody else, I could always find a little bit of people that have influenced me, like Dickinson, Don Misher. That there's always in somebody a similarity to you. To if you always looked for, like, I bet you he would think this way about this solution as well.
I have to ask a question. You obviously love music, and your whole career is based predominantly on musical artists. Do you actually play an instrument? I see all those guitars.
Yeah, what's with the
behind you.
guitars back there?
I am in my son, who lives in L.A. now, but we built a music room, and this is his music room. Both of my sons are studied at Berklee School of Music, and so there's everything's in here. This marimba, drum sets, everything. I grew up. I was a drummer in a marching band in Odessa, Texas. So in that whole football culture, that was my thing.
Marching bands,
drums.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how the Super Bowl halftime
That's
show
it.
started, with high school
That's
marching
right.
bands.
And up with people, then Bruce Rodgers.
Yeah. And you know,
That's right. Look what you've done.
and Carol Channing, remember Carol Channing?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Oh, of course.
I think she did like 4 Super Bowls, so she was the Beyonce of her time. And up with people.
I
That's funny.
think that's pushing it.
Exactly.
Bruce, man, this is it's a thrill to have you on the show, and and it's taken much too long, but thank God you finally decided that you had some time, because you're the busiest guy around, so there's no doubt about it. But this is kind of my dream, and we've had a lot of really important people on this show. From
you guys
Josh
have had some
White to Ken
amazing-
Billington to everybody. And this is probably the most thrilling show. That I wouldn't miss this for the world. But thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you.
Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another Saturday morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot, from the Snoot Group. And don't get it twisted. Just because I married one of these losers does not mean I will go easy on you. So don't with me.
Light Talk, coming to you from the tropical paradise St. Bart's, the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood, the Constitution State, Connecticut, and the entertainment capital of the world, where Carol Channing did her thing, New York City.
and be sure to join us next week when we dive into more lighting shenanigans and serve up a fresh, piping hot casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world. So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk. And thanks a lot, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Great to see you.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
Right.